1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, well, it's great to be here in Hervey Bay this morning. It's a beautiful morning, and talking about one of my favourite topics, fisheries. No doubt when we came to Parliament in 2015, the Palaszczuk government focused on a sustainable fishery policy. In 2019 we delivered amendments to the Fisheries Act, and since then there's been a deliberate approach and focus on sustainability of our fishery stocks. One of the measures in respect to that is enforcement. And I do have a boating and fishery patrol officer with me here today that's able to answer any stats around that. But I must firstly commend them for the work they do. Day and night, the men and women of the Queensland boating and fishery patrols are out there on the waters making sure our stocks are sustainable for our children and our grandchildren in the future. But they also support those good jobs in fisheries. Not only the boating and tackle shops, but also the tourism sector for the people that come up to places like Hervey Bay here to wet a line and enjoy the pastimes of being out of the water catching fish. And that's why it's extremely important the work they do in terms of enforcement. And I'll go to the figures of 2022, where there was close to nearly 500 penalty enforcement notices provided, issuing around about 270,000 in fines to those people that breach the fisheries laws. They also provided cautions, about 754 cautions, in an educational process explaining to people their purpose and also the needs to make sure they abide by the laws. Furthermore, there were 17 court prosecutions which delivered a further $68,700 as a result of those infringements that went to court. So once again, it is extremely important that people abide by the fisheries legislation and the Act. It's so simple these days, where you just need to download an app on your phone and Fisheries 2.0, and you can go to any species you catch, the length, the quota, but also the biomass of that particular species. So once again, enjoy your time out on the water, but make sure you abide by the fisheries legislations and the laws that go along with them.
Can we make this really clear that it is actually recreational fishes, not commercial fishes?
The bulk of those figures are recreational, yes.
We do have some concerned commercial fishers who are a little bit frightened of this green zone plan that is supposed to happen in Hervey Bay. I guess, can we give them some assurance? Obviously,
Look, we're working with the Department of Environment and Science, and Minister Scanlon and my department work very close in terms of determining the needs not only for recreational but also commercial fishers. So we'll land a position in over the next few months to make sure it's sustainable and it's good for the environment, but also good for local jobs. It's so important that we protect the jobs in these regions, but also protect the species and the stock assessments of the marine life in these areas.
do we know why these recreational fishers, the majority of them, might not be following the rules?
Well, there's 90% of people that conform with the requirements. So a large chunk of people do the right thing. It's just like anything, the small percentage of people that choose to do the wrong thing. And that's why they issue cautions of 754 cautionary notices to make sure people learn. And once again, there's no excuse if you download the app of what you can do and what you can't do.
And how are those trends sort of changing over time? Is it about the consistent amount of people making those errors each year?
There can be. There's patterns of sometimes people consistently making those breaches, and that's why when they appear before court, they end up with tougher penalties that apply to them as a result of their history of breaching fishery laws. All good? Thank you.
Sure. Yep. Yep, David Bruce, DAVID, BRUCE.
What's your title? What's your
I'm a field officer, Queensland Boating and Fisheries Patrol.
David, you're out there, you're the person who hands out these improvement notices, or you see what's happening out in the water. Can you talk us through what 2022 was like?
Yeah, it was a very proactive year, I think. With COVID, there was a lot of boating activity out in the water in Hervey Bay, which makes our job very busy throughout the year. Obviously, there was a number of offences detected as a result of that activity.
And I guess Central Queensland has the most amount. Is it surprising to see the figures displaced like this?
Not at all. I think the stock within the Central Queensland area is quite strong, and that's why we're seeing the figures quite large in this area.
And I guess what kind of happens when you are on the water? Do you just go up to a boat and you say, hey, can I have a look inside?
Most of the time we're doing routine inspections, so yeah, doing inspections of recreational and commercial fishers, and other times we are targeting those persons of interest as well, so there's a bit of a balance between both, I guess.
I guess how disappointing is it to see someone who does have an illegal practice like that?
Look, it is a little disappointing for us, but at the same time we do provide, I guess, an educational approach sometimes, which is quite beneficial to the party involved.
Yeah, do you find that those who are sort of offending don't always realise that they're making a mistake?
Sometimes, yeah, it's not intentional that they're taking undersized or regulated product, and that's why we provide that educational or cautionary approach in those instances. Thank you.
You going to be all right with the microphones there, or? You okay with that? So Mark Bailey, Minister for Transport Main Roads, you're good to go then? All good? Okay. Look, great to be here at Hervey Bay, beautiful part of Queensland. Look, these new numbers in terms of people being caught with mobile phone detection and seatbelt cameras are quite shocking. You know, there's clearly some people, hardcore number of people who are just not getting the message. We've got to remember that driving on our roads is a privilege. It's not a right. You've got to take into account the safety of other people, have respect for other users on our roads, and clearly there's still too many people who don't have that, and we need to make sure our roads are as safe as they can be. About a quarter of our deaths are from people not wearing a seatbelt, and it's a simple thing to make sure you're buckled in, your passengers buckled in. It's really important if there's a crash that you're restrained, we want to see a lot fewer tragedies on our roads this year than we did last year. And as for mobile phones, it's just not safe to be trying to have a call while driving your car. You've got to put it away. These new detection cameras are really the random breath testing of this era. You will get caught. They are anywhere, anytime. They move around regularly right across Queensland. And so if you haven't dealt with it and put your phone away, you will get caught. The fines are hefty. They're designed to be, to make sure that your eyes are on the roads, ready for anything. That's what the responsible driver will do. Any questions on any of that?
Yeah, those mobile cameras, are they as effective as you hope they would be if we are still seeing so many offences?
Yeah, look, I think what we're seeing is a gradual change in driver behaviour. We'll never have an overnight solution for anybody. Random breath testing took a couple of years for people to realise that they were definitely going to get caught if they were doing the wrong thing. And I think people are starting to understand out there, sometimes the hard way, that if they will get caught because these cameras are right across the state. So, when we see a change in behaviour, it takes a bit of time, but we're seeing progress on that, and we're seeing the increase in dangerous driving last year was less in the distraction area because I think these cameras are starting to work. So let's give them another 12 months or 18 months of operations, but I think more and more people are understanding that it's just not worth the risk to other people or to your own wallet to be doing the wrong thing while you're driving a car. You good? Okay. So you want a couple of comments on Cross River Rail and trains? Okay. Look, what a pleasure it was yesterday to see the preferred supplier announced for the new Queensland-made trains here in Maryborough in this region. What we know is that we're getting a large amount of population growth in Queensland because we've managed the pandemic so well. There's a lot of confidence in Queensland. They're coming across the border in large numbers. We've got to build the infrastructure and provide the services needed for a growing population. Now, what we see here is 65 new trains that will be made by Queensland manufacturing workers here in Queensland. This wouldn't have happened unless the Palaszczuk Labor government was in power. Because, how do I know that? Because you just have to look at the previous LNP government under Campbell Newman, David Crisafulli. They ordered trains from overseas. They sent Queensland jobs overseas. They also ordered trains that were not disability compliant. In this day and age, it's just staggering the incompetence of the LNP when they were in power. They cut Cross River Rail, they had trains made overseas, they weren't disability compliant, they cut train driver positions. The incompetence of the LNP when they were in power, it was absolutely staggering. Whereas you look at the Palaszczuk Labor government, Cross River Rail is 2/3 built. Absolutely essential for a growing population. Trains will be made here in Queensland by Queensland manufacturing workers because they'll be high quality trains and they will be disability compliant due to the changes we've brought in. We've got more than enough drivers for a growing rail network. So we are doing the work that's required to build the infrastructure for a growing population, and I won't be lectured to by a bunch of public transport incompetents like David Crisafulli, Jared Blay and all the other Newman leftovers that are still running the Queensland LNP. They botched public transport every single time they touched it when they were in power, and now they're lecturing us apparently about how we should do it. I mean, it's just laughable.
In October last year, you said the 65 trains would be ready to network in the southeast Queensland by 2025. Yesterday we heard 2026, so what's caused that 2-year delay?
Yeah, so look, we've got a procurement process that's independent from government. This is the most effective timetable possible to be provided by industry. So we work in the real world where we deliver things that are possible, and the proponents themselves, this is the best timetable that could be come up with. We've got full employment at the moment. There are challenges there. So look, you know, I'm very happy that Maryborough workers will have jobs for generations because they will be built here in Maryborough, in Torbanlea, in the Hervey Bay district by Queensland workers. They should never have been sent overseas by the LNP in the first place. It was a debacle, an absolute debacle. You know, we're still fixing the LNP's trains made overseas that aren't disability compliant right now. We're doing the 40th train out of 75 because we've had to fix them because they botched the procurement. That's not happening under this new process. Queensland-made trains, they will be state-of-the-art trains, they will run in the Cross River Rail tunnels, but they're not needed for the opening of the Cross River Rail tunnels. We have more than enough trains to open the tunnel, and we will see these trains, because they're fire rated, they're new trains, they will run under Cross River Rail underground because you know, they're going to be high quality trains.
And from 2026, when will sort of that last train be on the track? Is it going to be 5 years, 10 years, before the 2032?
Yeah, look, they'll certainly all be delivered before the 2032 Olympic and Paralympic Games. They will be built progressively and they'll be coming on in various uplifts of services as they're finished. So what we'll see is the opening of the Cross River Rail underground line tunnel only happens under Labor. What we'll see is as these trains are completed in batches, they'll be introduced into southeast Queensland as a service uplift, so people will see an increase in frequency. So, you know, if you're a commuter in southeast Queensland, you've got a brand new underground line coming, you've got Queensland-made trains coming, an increase in frequencies that will be progressive over a number of years coming because Labor invests in trains, public transport and Queensland jobs.
And that increase in frequency, when do you sort of expect that to be noticeable from 2026?
Yeah, so look, the planning that goes in around that is usually closer to the time. So obviously at the moment we're doing early works for the purpose-built train manufacturing facility. Once they're complete, we'll see the facility itself being built. The work from the successful proponent will start within a number of months of the signing of the contract, so they will be working very quickly, and we will see those trains start to come out in 2026. So, once they have the first one built, they've got a formula that they then start pumping them out. The speed of their production will increase from there, and I think Queenslanders will be really pleased to see Queensland manufacturing workers making the trains that they'll be riding in on the network. That's what they want. That's what they're going to get with this Palaszczuk government.
Just to be really clear, there will be enough trains to service the Cross River Railway.
Absolutely, absolutely. These trains are not necessary for the opening of the Cross River Rail Tunnel. They will run in the Cross River Rail Tunnel when they come online. That's a different thing. So, let's not hear lectures from, the LNP who botched public transport when they were in power. They sent these trains away to be made not in Queensland, not in Australia. They weren't even disability compliant. I mean, in this day and age, it's just staggering. The incompetence of the LNP, when they were in power on public transport, they couldn't have done worse when it comes to public transport. They cut Cross River Rail, would never have happened under them. They even promised to cut it a second time in 2017. Incredible, absolutely incredible. All they believe is cutting, sacking and selling. And then they stand up and say, why wasn't it done yesterday? I mean, the negativity, the whinging and whining from David Crisafulli, I mean, people are really, really tired of it.
Just got some questions from the Gold Coast. When is the first stage early works for the
Yeah, so the Coomera Connector, otherwise known as the second M1, early works are already underway. They started last year. This was a project, again, blocked by David Crisafulli and the LNP when they were in power in 2014. It was well reported in the Gold Coast Bulletin at the time that they blocked this project from progressing. And now they're saying it should have been built yesterday. I mean, it's just pathetic. Pathetic, silly, petty party politics from the LNP when it's Labor who actually came into power, secured the whole corridor, 45-kilometre corridor in only a number of years. Very quick time to establish a highway. Got more than $2 billion in funding lined up, and now we're building it, and they're whinging and whining even now. I mean, the LNP on the Gold Coast are the laziest bunch of MPs you would come across. We are spending now 7 times the level on infrastructure than under the LNP when they were in power, because they cut the budget on roads so savagely. So, to hear this predictable criticism from them when we're building a really necessary second M1, despite the blocking and the delays from them when they were in power, it just has to be called out for what it is, and that is just rank hypocrisy from people who were incompetent when they were in government, and they're still all there. Look at them, Campbell Newman leftovers, Blay, Crisafulli, Bates, Nichols, Minikin, they're all still in control, learnt nothing.
So early works were supposed to be underway late last year. You're saying that they are underway now?
Early works started last year. This is announced on the public record. So if the LNP doesn't know what's previously been announced, it just shows you how incompetent they are. This is a major project. It is going to be the biggest road project, single road project in Queensland. So this is not something that you design on the back of a cigarette packet. It is something that needs thorough planning, detailed design. That work has been done. We will see major progress on this project in the very near future, and I look forward to being there. I'll have the biggest smile on my face, I can tell you that. As an old Gold Coast boy, I understand the growth that's on the Gold Coast and the need for infrastructure. And we're not going to cut infrastructure on the Gold Coast like the LNP did. We're upgrading the M1. We're building a second M1. We're doing another stage of the light rail after doing a second stage after nothing under the LNP. Compare Labor's record to the LNP on the Gold Coast, and you've got zero versus major infrastructure, more than $5 billion going into infrastructure on the Gold Coast over the next 4 years.
So are we saying there'll be no delays for motorists?
Well, we've got to build the infrastructure that motorists need, and so that's what we're doing. We've got a $1 billion upgrade at the M1 at the southern Gold Coast. We've upgraded the M1 interchanges at exits 54, 57, we're almost, and also 45. We're almost done at exit 41. We've started on exit 49. We're building a second M1. Compare that to a big fat zero under the LNP when they were in power. They ignored the Gold Coast. They took it for granted, and now they're whinging that it wasn't done yesterday. I mean, it's just pathetic leadership from Crisafulli.
Now, reporters just asking for an explanation on where the stages will be constructed and the time frames when they're expected to start and be completed.
Yeah, look, so this is a massive road project. So we're putting in over $1 billion to the M1 on the southern Gold Coast. This is more than double the size of that project. So it will be done in packages and progressively over the next couple of years. It'll be complete by 2026, which, given that it's 2023 now and it's a major project, we will see this project progress very, very well. So just remember this, we didn't have a single square metre available to build anything on for the second M1 when we come into power because the LNP had blocked it. We gazetted all 3 sections, we secured the corridor, we got more than $2 billion in funding from state and the Commonwealth in line. We've done all the hard work and detailed design, and we'll see major construction work start very, very soon. That is a proud and strong record of investing in the Gold Coast by the Palaszczuk Labor government compared to cuts and cuts under the LNP when they were in power. They did nothing for the Gold Coast, and I won't truck any criticism from someone with such a pathetic record as David Crisafulli and the LNP, who did nothing for the Gold Coast when they were in power.
I've just got one more quick train question.
Yeah, sure.
How much of this $7.1 billion is allocated to building trains as opposed to the manufacturing factory for
Look, I don't have that breakdown handy for you, but the $7 billion figure, of course, covers the state-of-the-art train manufacturing facility, which will be publicly owned, the building of the trains and the operation of the trains, over the next couple of decades. So, it's a fully inclusive figure, give people a full sense of it to be transparent. But the train manufacturing facility costs a number of hundreds of millions of dollars, but it's needed. I was at Downer yesterday, and that is a facility that has served Queensland well for 150 years, but it does look very old, and we need a state-of-the-art, efficient manufacturing facility to build trains in Queensland, not overseas, and that's what we're doing under the Palaszczuk government. All right, all good? Lovely. Thanks, everybody. Cheers.
What am I doing? Do you want me to respond in any way, or am I just looking at it?
Even if we maybe over there, over the water would be nice.
Okay.